There is an old story from the time of Zhuangzi, a tale that has survived centuries not because it is complex, but because it holds a mirror to our most exhaustion. Imagine, if you will, a man crossing a river. It is early morning. The mist hangs heavy over the water, gray and silent. He is steering his small wooden boat, lost in his own thoughts, perhaps worrying about the day ahead, perhaps regretting the day before. Suddenly, out of the thick fog, another boat crashes directly into his. There is a violent thud. Wood splinters against wood. The man is instantly thrown off balance. His coffee spills. His peace is shattered. In a heartbeat, his shock turns to a white-hot rage. He screams into the mist, cursing the incompetence of the other pilot. "Are you blind?" he yells. "How could you be so careless? You have ruined my boat." His veins bulge. His face turns red with the righteous fire of a victim. But then, the current shifts the boats apart, and the mist clears just enough for him to look inside the offending vessel. And he stops. The scream dies in his throat. His fists unclench. The other boat is empty. It had slipped its moorings and drifted downstream with the current. There is no enemy. There is no incompetent pilot. There is no one to blame. And in that precise moment, the anger vanishes. It dissipates like the morning fog. The collision is exactly the same. The damage to his boat is exactly the same. But the suffering has evaporated. Why? Because there is no ego to fight against. He realizes he has been screaming at an empty boat. This parable is not merely a story about a river. It is the most accurate diagnosis of our modern condition. We walk through our days in a state of frenetic hyperarousal, constantly braced for impact. We have become experts at painting faces on empty boats. Consider how we feel when a traffic jam delays us. We take it personally, as if the universe has conspired to steal our time. Consider the notification on our phone that we read with a sinking heart, or the rude comment from a stranger on the internet. We treat every obstacle, every delay, every minor irritation as a personal affront, a boat steered by an enemy who intends to harm us. We are exhausted, my friends, but we are not exhausted by the mountains we climb. We are exhausted by the pebble in our shoe that we refuse to stop and remove. We are fighting wars that do not exist, depleting our spirit in a battle against the inevitable flow of reality. We believe that if we do not react, if we do not defend our opinion, if we do not fix the problem immediately, if we do not snap back, we are losing. But the ancient wisdom of the Tao suggests that this resistance is exactly what drowns us. We are caught in a virajum of our own making, spinning in circles, screaming at wood and water. This brings us to the first great pillar of understanding, the illusion of control. We react because we are terrified. Deep down, we believe that if we tighten our grip, we can force the world to behave. We live with a closed fist. But as the old masters remind us, whoever tries to hold the world will lose it. Think of the last time you sent a text message to someone important, perhaps a lover, perhaps a boss, and they did not reply immediately. Watch what happens to the mind. It begins to spiral. We check the phone. We put it down. We pick it up again. Our chest tightens. We invent stories of rejection or disaster. We are gripping the device as if the sheer force of our anxiety could pull a reply through the airwaves. This is the closed fist. It changes nothing in the external world. The message will arrive when it arrives. But internally, it creates a storm that capsizes our peace. This reactivity is often disguised as strength. But let us be honest with ourselves. It is a profound weakness. When we react impulsively to everything that happens to us, we are handing the remote control of our emotions to strangers. As the Stoics, cousins to the Taoists, would say, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. Think of the driver who cuts you off on the highway. In that split second, you have a choice. If you react with rage, if you chase him, if you let your blood pressure spike, you have essentially allowed a complete stranger to dictate your mood for the next hour. You have become a puppet, and he pulls the strings. Is this power? No. Power is the ability to see the boat, acknowledge the collision, and remain the captain of your own soul. We must also understand the ripple effect. When the water of our mind is agitated, we cannot see the bottom. We cannot see the truth. How many times have we been in a heated argument with a spouse or a family member, and in the heat of the moment, we reacted? We said the thing that felt good to say, the sharp word designed to win the moment. But words are like arrows. Once released, they cannot be called back. The satisfaction of the reaction lasts a second. The scar on the relationship can last a lifetime. A muddy mind makes poor decisions. The Tao teaches us that muddy water becomes clear only when left alone. The antidote to this fever is the pause. It is the sacred space between the stimulus and the response. It is the three-breath rule. When the email arrives that makes your stomach drop, or when the insult is hurled your way, you do not strike back. You anchor yourself. You take one breath to feel the body, a second breath to observe the emotion without judging it, a third breath to ask, is this boat empty? In that silence, freedom is born. But how do we move through the world if we do not force our way? This brings us to the second pillar, the misunderstood art of Wu Wei. In the West, we often mistranslate Wu Wei as doing nothing, which sounds like laziness or passivity. This is a tragic misunderstanding. Wu Wei is not the absence of action. It is the absence of friction. It is the art of effortless action. It is the difference between swimming upstream, fighting every current, and floating downstream, using the power of the river to reach your destination. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Look at the trees outside your window. They do not strain to grow. They do not pace back and forth, anxious about whether they will be taller tomorrow. They simply participate in the subtle process of maturation. They follow the season. Yet, they grow massive. Their roots break concrete. Their branches shade the earth. We, however, approach our work and our lives like frantic machines. We try to force the harvest before the spring has even ended. We cram for exams in a panic. We write reports in a caffeine-fueled haze. We treat our careers like a battlefield. And we wonder why we burn out. There is a famous story in the Zhuangzi about a butcher named Ding. He was called upon to cut up an ox for a sacrifice. The king watched him work and was amazed. Ding's knife moved with a musical rhythm, never hacking, never chopping, just sliding. When asked how he did it, Ding explained that a mediocre butcher changes his knife every month because he hacks at the bone. A good butcher changes his knife every year because he cuts the tendon. But Ding had used the same knife for 19 years, and it was still as sharp as if it had just come from the whetstone. Why? Because he searched for the spaces between the joints. He did not force the blade through the hard parts. He found the emptiness and let the blade wander there. We must apply the wisdom of Butcher Ding to our modern problems. When you face a complex issue at work or a difficult dynamic in your family, do not hack at the bone. Do not use brute force that leaves you exhausted and the knife dull. Look for the opening. Look for the path of least resistance. This is the fecundity of Wu Wei. It also applies to our relationships. We often try to force connections. We go to networking events with a desperate energy, handing out business cards, trying to make things happen. But true connection works through osmosis. It requires an action without expectation. We plant the seed of a relationship, we water it with genuine presence, and then we step back. We allow it to grow in its own time. If we do not adopt this approach, we suffer a massive leakage of our vital energy, our qi. Traditional Chinese medicine warns us that emotional excess, the constant highs and lows of reactivity, damages our internal organs. It drains the kidney essence. It overloads the heart. Think of how you feel after an hour of doom scrolling, engaging in imaginary arguments with headlines, feeling the outrage spike every few seconds. You put the phone down and you feel hollowed out, gray, lifeless. You have spent your qi on phantoms. Wu Wei is the practice of sealing that leak. It is the choice to preserve your energy for what is real, for what is within your reach, and for what truly nurtures the soil of your life. If we look closely at the natural world, we find a teacher that has no voice, yet speaks louder than any scripture. This brings us to the third pillar, the strategy of being like water. In our culture, we are obsessed with hardness. We use words like solid, rigid, and unbreakable as supreme compliments. We teach our children to stand like rocks, to confront obstacles with a stiff upper lip, to crash through barriers. But Lao Tzu, the old master, invites us to look at the stream. The water is the softest thing in the universe. It yields to the slightest touch. You can put your hand through it, and it separates without resistance. Yet, given time, that soft, yielding water cuts through the hardest granite. It carved the Grand Canyon not by force, but by persistence. There is a profound lesson here for our conflicts. When we enter an argument, whether it is a domestic dispute in the kitchen or a negotiation in the boardroom, our instinct is to become a rock. We harden our stance. We raise our voice. We meet force with force. But when rock meets rock, sparks fly, and eventually, one or both will shatter. To be like water is to understand that softness is not weakness. It is a superior form of survival. When a furious person screams at you, they are expecting a wall to hit. They want the resistance. It fuels their fire. But if you meet their rage with a liquid calmness, if you absorb the shock and let it flow past you, they lose their balance. They have nothing to push against. You have not been defeated. You have simply refused to break. You have preserved your integrity by yielding, just as the bamboo bends in the hurricane while the mighty oak snaps. We must also learn to take the shape of the container. Water has no fixed shape of its own, and this is its genius. If you pour it into a cup, it becomes the cup. If you pour it into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. It adapts instantly to the reality of the moment. We, however, suffer because we are rigid. We have a fixed idea of who we are and how our life should look. Consider the trauma of losing a job. The rigid mind says, "I am a manager. This is my identity. Without this title, I am nothing." This rigidity creates an abyss of despair. The water-like mind, however, flows. It says, "The container has changed. I am no longer in the cup. I am now in the bowl. I will fill this new space just as perfectly." This radical adaptability allows us to survive the shifting tides of the economy and the sudden changes in our personal lives without losing our substance. As the modern dragon Bruce Lee reminded us, we must be water not to escape reality, but to fit into it so perfectly that we cannot be harmed by it. There is also the power of the low place. We live in a society that races for the summit. Everyone wants to be on top, to be seen, to be the king of the mountain. But the Tao Te Ching reminds us that the sea is the king of streams, not because it fights to be above, but because it lies lower than them. All rivers flow to the ocean because the ocean is humble. It sits in the basin. In our relationships, we often destroy harmony because we are terrified of the low place. We are terrified of admitting we were wrong, or of letting the other person have the last word. We feel we must win the interaction, but there is a subtle power in letting the other person feel tall. When you are secure enough in your own vastness, like the ocean, you do not need to prove your depth. You can allow the noisy streams to rush into you, and you remain unchanged, salt, and deep. And finally, water teaches us the unstoppable flow. You can build a dam, you can block the stream, but the water does not panic. It simply waits. It rises silently and patiently until it finds a way over, or around, or through a crack. It does not waste energy complaining about the wall. It just flows. Think of your own long-term goals, perhaps the desire to heal your body, or to learn a new craft. We often approach these like a flash flood, intense, destructive bursts of energy, followed by drought. We diet aggressively for 2 weeks, then crash. We write furiously for 2 days, then stop. The waterway is the way of the steady drip. It is the small, daily consistency that eventually erodes the mountain of inertia. It is the quiet power of persistence that doesn't need to scream to be effective. As we learn to flow, we must also learn to empty ourselves. This leads us to the 4th pillar, the void, or the practice of emptiness as a shield. Let us return for a moment to the image of the empty boat. The reason the man did not get angry at the empty boat was that there was no self inside it to blame. But the deeper teaching of Zhuangzi is this: if a man can empty his own boat, he crosses the river of the world and no one opposes him. What fills our boat? Our ego, our self-importance, our constant need to be recognized, validated, and respected. We are so heavy with our own self that we sit low in the water, dragging against the bottom, easily snagged by every branch and rock. When we walk into a room full of self-importance, we are a giant target. An insult hits us because we are solid. A criticism wounds us because we are defending a fortress. But imagine if you were air. Imagine if you were a void. If someone shoots an arrow at the empty sky, the arrow simply passes through. It cannot wound the sky. Becoming the empty boat means detaching your worth from the opinions of others. When someone insults you, instead of puffing up your chest to deflect the blow, you become transparent. You realize that their words are just sound vibrating in the air. If there is no ego to catch the insult falls harmlessly to the floor. You remain untouched, not because you are tough, but because you are vast. To achieve this, we must practice what the ancients called the fasting of the heart. We are used to fasting with the body, denying ourselves food. But the fasting of the heart is denying ourselves the noise of our own internal monologue. How often do we truly listen to another human being? When a friend comes to us with a heavy burden, most of us are not listening. We are reloading. We are waiting for a gap in the conversation to insert our own story, our own advice, our own judgment. We are full cups, unable to receive anything. To fast with the heart is to clear that internal noise. It is to listen with the spirit, not just the ear. It is to become a sanctuary of silence for the other person. You will find that when you simply offer your emptiness to a suffering person, when you just listen without trying to fix them, you offer them a profound healing. You become the space in which they can hear themselves. This emptiness is also our only shield against the anxiety of the future. We suffer because we cling to outcomes. We plant a garden, but instead of enjoying the gardening, we obsess over the harvest. We invest money, and we lose sleep over the market. We attach our happiness to a specific result that is out of our control. The Tao Te Ching tells us that hope and fear are both phantoms that arise from thinking of the self. Hope is the fear that we won't get what we want. Fear is the hope that we won't get what we don't want. Both bind us to the future. To be empty is to act with total commitment in the present moment, but to remain detached from the result. It is the archer who shoots the arrow with all his skill, but once the string is released, he does not twist his body trying to steer the arrow in mid-flight. He watches it fly. If it hits the target, good. If it misses, good. His worth is not the target. His worth is the shooting. This is the only way to work in a chaotic world without losing your mind. Finally, we must rediscover the usefulness of the useless. We live in a utility-obsessed world. Everything must have a function. Every minute must be productive. We feel guilty if we are just sitting. But consider a clay pot. We mold the clay into a shape, but it is the empty space inside that holds the water. The clay is the structure, but the emptiness is the utility. Consider a room. We build walls and a roof, but it is the empty space inside that makes it livable. Without the empty space, it would just be a solid block of brick, useless to anyone. Our minds are becoming solid blocks of brick. We have crammed every spare second with information, podcasts, news, and scrolling. We have no empty space left. And because we have no space, we have no creativity, no peace, no resonance. We must reclaim the useless time. We must schedule time to do absolutely nothing. No phone, no book, no meditation technique, just sitting, just looking at the light on the wall. It is in this useless void that our soul catches its breath. It is in this fertile silence that the muddy water clears, and we remember who we are before the world told us who to be. As we strip away the layers of reaction and control, we begin a journey backward. We do not move forward into complexity, but backward into simplicity. This is the fifth pillar, returning to the root, finding stillness in the center of chaos. The Taoists speak of a concept called Pu, the uncarved block. Imagine a piece of wood in its original state. It is rough, simple, and full of infinite potential. It has not yet been cut into a spoon, a table, or a statue. It is just itself. We are born as uncarved blocks. We are born simple, honest, and whole. But as we grow, the world begins to carve us. Society takes its sharp chisel and cuts away pieces of our spirit. Be more ambitious, the chisel strikes. Be more extroverted, the knife cuts. Hide your sadness, the sandpaper grinds. By the time we are adults, we are no longer simple blocks. We are intricate, fragile statues, covered in varnish, terrified of being scratched. We wear these complex personas like heavy armor. We have a mask for the office, a mask for our spouse, a mask for social media, where we curate a life that looks perfect but feels hollow. Maintaining these carvings is exhausting. It requires a frenetic amount of energy to keep the statue polished. Returning to the root means having the courage to be the uncarved block again. It means stripping away the need to be interesting or impressive and settling into the comfort of being ordinary. It is the realization that you do not need to perform your own life. You only need to live it. When we drop the persona, we become solid again. We become real. And reality, unlike the image, cannot be broken. But how do we remain this solid block when the world around us is spinning? We must understand the structure of the wheel. Look at a wagon wheel as it rolls down the road. The rim is moving at a violent speed, contacting the dirt, the rocks, the mud. It is in constant motion. But look at the center, the hub. The hub stands absolutely still. It is because the hub is still that the wheel can turn. We are often trapped on the rim of the wheel, spinning in the voragem of the 10-round siren things, the news cycles, the market crashes, the office politics, the daily emergencies. We get dizzy because we are moving with the noise. The master returns to the hub. The master finds the center of the cyclone. When a crisis erupts at work, notice how everyone rushes to the rim, panicking, shouting, sending frantic emails. The person who wins, the person who leads, is the one who remains the hub. They find the stillness within the motion. They anchor the room not by doing more, but by being the calmest point in the chaos. To the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders. This brings us back to the mud. We mentioned earlier that muddy water clears only when left alone. But let us deepen this. This is not just a metaphor for anger. It is a biological instruction for anxiety. When we feel the fog of anxiety descending, our instinct is to fix it. We want to analyze why we are anxious. We want to talk about it. We want to run it off. We want to medicate it. We stick our hands into the muddy water and thrash around, desperate to find the clear bottom. But this only kicks up more dust. We must learn the difficult art of doing nothing with our pain. When the heaviness comes, can you just sit with it? Can you go for a walk and let the mud exist? Can you trust that the sediment will settle by itself through the law of gravity? This requires a fecund silence, a silence that is not empty, but fertile. It is in this waiting that the water clears, and the answer appears not as a thought you forced, but as a reflection you can finally see. And so, we arrive at the final pillar, the hardest and most beautiful of all. Trusting the process, or what the ancients called ziran, self-soness. Ziran translates to that which is so of itself. It is the quality of spontaneity. Look at a plant growing. It does not look at a blueprint. It does not hold a meeting to decide which direction the leaf should grow. It simply unfolds. It trusts its own internal intelligence. We, however, have forgotten how to unfold. We live like machines, processing data, executing plans, terrified of making a mistake. We have lost our intuition. To trust the process is to reclaim our spontaneity. It is to enter a conversation not with a rehearsed script in your head, trying to manipulate the outcome, but with an open heart, trusting that the right words will arise from the moment. It is to trust that you are not a robot that needs programming, but a living organism that knows how to adapt. This trust requires us to respect the seasons of life. We are obsessed with the harvest. We want eternal summer. We want our careers to always be ascending, our relationships to always be passionate, our bodies to always be energetic. But nature has winter. Nature has decay. You cannot force a harvest in January. If you try, you will only destroy the soil. Many of us are suffering right now because we are in a winter period of our lives, a career stagnation, a creative block, a period of loneliness, and we are fighting it. We are beating the frozen ground, demanding flowers. The Taoist farmer knows that winter is not death. It is the time of deep, subtle maturation. It is when the roots go deep to gather the strength for the next spring. If you are in winter, rest. Gather your qi. Do not react against the cold. Put on a warm coat and wait. The spring is inevitable, but it cannot be rushed. We must also let go of the tyrant known as should. Should is the enemy of is. We torture ourselves with how things ought to be. My partner should be more attentive. My career should be further along. This traffic shouldn't be here. Every time we use this word, we are arguing with reality. And as the wise commentator Stephen Mitchell reminds us, when you argue with reality, you lose, but only 100% of the time. Loving what is does not mean resignation. It means dealing with the raw material that is actually in front of you. You cannot navigate the river if you are looking at a map of a river that doesn't exist. You must look at the water beneath your boat. If your plans have fallen apart, if the flight was canceled, if the deal fell through, this is not an error in the universe. It is the Tao redirecting you. It is the great integrity of life moving you away from a cliff you could not see. We think we know what is good for us, but we see through a keyhole. The Tao sees the whole house. To trust the process is to believe that the detour is actually the path. It is to believe that the bad thing might be the manure necessary for the good thing to grow. It is the ultimate transfiguration of our perspective. From a victim of circumstance to a student of the flow. We have traveled a long way, from the screaming man on the misty lake to the quiet farmer waiting for spring. The journey of the Tao is not about acquiring new powers. It is about losing old burdens. We are transfiguring our role in this life. We are no longer the warrior, standing on the battlefield, scarred, exhausted, swinging our sword at every shadow, trying to conquer the world. We are becoming the sailor. We respect the wind. We understand the tide. We do not shout at the storm. We adjust our sails. To do nothing, to practice Wu Wei, to be the empty boat, is not to give up. It is the ultimate act of bravery. It is the declaration that you are so secure in your own existence, so anchored in your own route, that no storm can provoke you into losing your center. You are no longer a leaf blown by the wind. You are the wind itself. Take a deep breath. Feel the weight of the need to control sliding off your shoulders. Let it drop. It was never yours to carry. See the lake in your mind one last time. The mist has cleared. The sun is touching the water. Your boat is drifting gently, held by the current, safe, guided, and free. You are not steering. You are not fighting. You are simply being. And that is enough.